Hello everybody, welcome to an episode of Time with Tahiti. I try to do country-inspired creations for you guys from the comfort of my concrete jungle kitchen. I live literally in a high-rise in the middle of a city, but I love country food and living. Today's video is a very sought-after sourdough cinnamon roll recipe. So first, you actually have to have an active sourdough culture within your home. I have one. I fed it at 9 a.m. So by about 9 p.m., I'm ready to use that active culture that's been fed, and it's ready to mix my dough. First, we started off with a half a cup of my, wait for that ambulance to go by. It's like every 5 seconds. So first you start with about a half a cup of your fed sourdough starter, 1 cup of buttermilk, 2 tablespoons of maple syrup, and 8 tablespoons of cold butter. So you can either grate this or chop it into little cubes if you like. I use grass-fed salted Kerrygold butter. Then you want to slowly incorporate 2.5 cups of all-purpose baking flour. I like baking flour. It's got a little bit higher protein content. I use it for making bread as well. Also, here's a little pro tip. This base from the night before is literally identical to how I would make my buttermilk biscuits. So in the morning, you can just kind of decide, do I want to make cinnamon rolls or do I want to make buttermilk biscuits? It's literally the exact same recipe from the night before. Put it onto a very floured surface, worked in the extra flour, worked it into a nice ball, put it into a glass bowl and covered it and let it sit overnight for about 12 hours. By the next morning, it will have doubled in size and you're ready to add the remainder of the ingredients. The next morning, you want to add 3/4 of a teaspoon of sea salt, 1 teaspoon of baking powder, and 1/2 teaspoon of baking soda. And I like to use my dough hook in my mixer for this, just so I don't get my hands all dirty again. And then once that's all incorporated, I put it onto a very floured surface. You want to definitely generously flour this so that way it doesn't stick when you're rolling your cinnamon rolls. I grab my rolling pin, flour that as well, and I roll out my dough into a nice rectangle. For the filling, I used 4 tablespoons of butter, and I brushed that all along the surface. 3/4 of a cup of brown sugar dusted on there, as well as about 2 to 3 teaspoons of cinnamon. Then once that's on there, I'm going to use my bench scraper to help me roll my cinnamon rolls into a nice spiral. I cut my cinnamon rolls into about 1.5 inches thick, and then I grabbed my cast iron skillet and I lightly butter it all around. Now my oven is preheated to 375. Bake it for about 30 minutes at 375, depending on your oven and altitude and all those things. For me, it's about 30 to 33 minutes, and I kind of just check it when I see when it's golden brown. I bring it on out, and then now it's time to glaze. And I like to use a cream cheese glaze for my cinnamon rolls, and I don't like to make it too sweet. So I use 1 cup of room temperature or warm cream cheese. You can warm it up on the stovetop or you can just leave it out so it's nice and warm. 1/2 cup of heavy cream, and then 1/2 teaspoon of maple syrup and 2 teaspoons of vanilla extract. So it's a very semi-sweet cream cheese frosting, which I love because you're already dealing with all of that sugar inside of the filling. So then you spread that beautiful cream cheese glaze over the cinnamon rolls, and you can wait for them to cool just a little bit, and then they are ready to serve. You definitely want to eat these warm. That is where it's at for sure. So why sourdough cinnamon rolls? So anything sourdough, by fermenting that dough, that 12 hours that we spent there, all of that active yeast is going to slowly break down all of the gluten and the proteins in that flour. So it's basically like pre-digesting your food for you. All that good bacteria and microbes are in there doing that for you. So some people that are really sensitive to gluten can actually eat sourdough like myself because it's already pre-digested. It also lowers the glycemic index of the dough. And I know that's crazy to talk about glycemic index while we're making cinnamon rolls, but it does. Just regular flour and water that you don't let actively ferment has a glycemic index in the high 70s. And if you do this fermentation for those 12 hours, it actually lowers the glycemic index of the dough down to mid 50s. It makes them as healthy as cinnamon rolls could possibly be, if that's even possible. But anyway, I hope you guys enjoyed this recipe. Don't forget that pro tip, that dough from the night before literally could be for your sourdough biscuits. And that will be the next video, is making those biscuits. But you'll see it's the exact same recipe. But I hope you guys enjoyed. If you make these, please tag me in it. I would love to see your creations, and enjoy.